I'm Ron Gallagher at Maximum Velocity Physical Therapy, and you're listening to HYPERSPEED Radio. You don't have to live in pain, whether you're running, swimming, playing a team sport, or just everyday fitness. We bridge a gap between medicine and strength and conditioning to help you break through at MVPT. I can't get over how much I love that intro.
Same.
Sticky Paw Studios came full effect on that. I love it. Today is episode 12, HYPERSPEED Radio. We are introducing Madeline to the HYPERSPEED Radio universe from Icebox Strength, who works out of the clinic. A lot of patients say, "What is that?" And I explain it.
What do you say?
What I'm hoping for today is a more accurate explanation, because I think the evolution of Madeline and Icebox is this really dynamic, ongoing thing, and there's probably a better explanation. So I'm looking forward to being able to do that better today. Let me start by reading Madeline's intro in true Madeline form it came across. I'm just going to read it because it's super easy to mess it up. So I'm just going to read it.
Okay.
Do you have any objections?
No.
All right. Madeline DeAngelo, head coach of Icebox Strength, is a longtime lover of Type 2 fun. I've been immersed in athletics for a long time. Growing up, I was a very competitive swimmer, a mediocre volleyball player, and traditional rock climber. Later, I emphasized a focus in yoga, over 200 hours, teacher training certified, and then CrossFit Level 1 certified, adaptive training certified. Through CrossFit, I explored the basics of running, gymnastics, and weight training. Today, I'm a full-time professor of movement, and I teach my students that a deliberate and intentional strength training practice is the best thing you can do for your mind, body, and soul. Wow.
You did it. Good job. I want to know what about that is so quintessential Madeline to you.
That's a good question. So as soon as I saw Type 2 fun, I was like, this is going to be good.
You know, it's funny. I heard one of your, maybe it was Kirsten, talking in the clinic about Type 2 fun. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was talking about a race.
It was on her social media.
Was that what it was?
Yes. So, yes.
I was impressed to see a little Type 2 fun reference.
So you didn't learn about it there. You already had.
Oh, please. Type 2 fun and I go way back.
So in case somebody in the audience doesn't know what Type 2 fun is, why don't you give me a quick rundown?
I would be happy to do that. Type 1 fun is the type of fun that I think everybody thinks of when they think of fun. Type 1 fun is like instant gratification. You're going to the movies, you're going to go have a drink, you're going to eat a wonderful meal, you're going to see your friends. This is all kind of Type 1 fun category. Instant gratification, it feels good while you're doing it. Maybe it feels not so good when you're done doing it. If you've ever been drinking, you know what that's like.
Oh, yeah.
But Type 2 fun is not fun while you're doing it. It's only fun when it's over and you look back and you're like, that was kind of fun. Even though while you were doing it, you're like, what am I thinking? Why am I doing this? Why am I here?
Right.
And Type 2 fun is very gratifying. Delayed gratification, you have to be patient and you have to be willing to sacrifice the present for the future. But if you're willing to do that in general, you're going to have a better life. And so getting well acquainted with Type 2 fun in a way that makes Type 2 fun accessible and enjoyable, now you've cracked the code.
Oh, so much to unpack there. We might have to save that for a whole other.
Okay. But that's was that a good Type 1, Type 2
yes,
definition? Okay.
I'm impressed.
You agree?
Not just, well, I mean, I don't think that one's up for me to agree or not. I think you were just stating facts. Professor of Movement was another one that made me go, yes. I can't wait to unpack that later, but we're going to get to that one in a bit. So a little story about Madeline.
Ooh.
Madeline came as a patient, and we have a mutual friend that you were working with, and immediately I was impressed with where you've been and what you were doing with yourself, and just like your whole mindset around the evolution that I think you're still like not real settled on. At least that's my perspective. But she came as a patient. I want to say the first round was knee pain.
It was back pain that was so
Lower
bad. It
back
was
pain.
down
That's
to my
right.
knees.
That's
Back
right.
pain down to my knees.
That's right. It was definitely lower back pain. There's been multiple
So many things you fixed. That's why we call him the Wizard of Oz.
because
Because of all the wonderful things he does.
that's the best. Anyway, so yeah, she came for back pain. She left with deadlift, and I think that was remarkable in her mind. Like she didn't see that part coming. And at that point, she had just recently introduced strength training to her life and was in the process of becoming a CrossFit coach. And she had kind of come full circle on what she thinks movement should be. And I just found that whole thing to be captivating. And then over the years, more and more ailments came, and we just got to a place where we almost know what each other's thinking before
She says it.
before we say it. So in a lot of ways, we're very, very similar, and then in a lot of ways, we have a lot to learn from each other, I think.
It's definitely true.
So without further ado, would you like to be called Maddie?
You can call me whatever you like. I used to fight against Maddie, but I've embraced it now.
You see, I would rather you tell me what you would prefer to be called.
But I have no preference.
Okay. So
I
Mad
would
Dog,
prefer you be comfortable. Yeah, Mad Dog is good.
Mad Dog's
I
an
wish
option.
Mad Dog was more popular.
Oh, really?
Maddie seems to be what everybody calls me. I've embraced it at this point. I think it's just
Yeah.
easy. Maddie, it's easy to say.
It is. It rolls off the tongue.
Yeah.
Little more than Madeline.
Madeline's a lot.
And it seems so formal to me.
It is.
Like I always feel
That's why I prefer people
like if
go out of their way.
and this has never happened, but if I had to be stern, I think I would use Madeline. I think
Yeah.
that's maybe the place for Madeline.
Oh, I've been Madeline.
Madeline, but not for me.
What, are you going to Madeline Irene me?
No.
Okay.
That's definitely not
you
going to
might.
happen.
Okay. Well, you could call me Maddie, Madeline, whatever you like.
Coach Mad Dog.
Coach Mad Dog.
So talk to me about how does a person so competitive swimmer becomes yoga instructor, becomes CrossFit coach. Tell me about that process.
That's a big question. But I think, and then the process was super natural and organic, the way you would expect anybody who was just pursuing something that they were interested in to grow and evolve. And I think when I found swimming when I was young, I was 11 when I started swimming, which is actually not that young. And like,
Right. Competitive swimmers have been swimming 3 more years usually.
oh yeah. And there was a significant difference, I'll be honest. I mean, by the time I got up into like actually swimming when I was like in high school, it was clear who'd been swimming since they were 7 and who'd been swimming since they were 11.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I was 11 when I found it and I really loved it. I was a very nervous kid. I was like skeptical of everything. I always doubted myself. I was super dependent on my older sister because we grew up really close and I could rely on her to be my comfort blanket in a lot of situations. I really resisted trying new things, especially on my own. I was just a timid, shy, fearful kid. Like I
Really?
didn't trust my own ability. Yeah, I have thought about this a lot. So as a kid and like growing up and my mom was always wanting us to try new things and do stuff and get the heck out of the house. And we were homeschooled, so she had lots of opportunities to try to get us out. Anything she could take to get us out, she would take.
Can I just say that you have amazing parents?
I have the best parents ever.
I've had the fortune of having both
As patients.
DeAngelos as patients, and for both very separate reasons, very rewarding experiences.
They're very eccentric and so different from each other.
And amazing people.
They're amazing people, and they were great
your
parents.
Mom's overcome so much.
Yes,
And
the most
super inspiring.
The most inspiring thing about my mom and my dad too, I think, and I'm biased obviously as their kid, but I especially the more and I grow and mature and see the world for what it is and realize just how much my parents sacrificed. And it wasn't sacrifice they didn't want to make. They wanted to make these sacrifices to raise their kids as best as possible. And like I really took it for granted when I was young, because when you're young, that's all you know. the older you get and the more experiences you have and the more people and types of people you're exposed to, the more I realize like, wow, I'm so lucky that my parents like really, they did their best. Like they just, and not many kids can say that their parents really, and I'm just so grateful and blessed, and I never ever take it for granted. So that's a note on my parents. But anyway, I was homeschooled and they were trying to get us the hell out of the house. So I remember my mom put us in swimming. It was like this like little league county swim team, the Sunset Squids. Shout out, hey, Sunset Squids.
Go Squids.
That pool is not even in existence anymore, but that's where we started competitive swimming, and I kicked and screamed, and I was like, Mom, please no, I do not want to do this. Valerie, my older sister, is going to be way better than me. This is so stupid. Like, don't make me go. My poor mom. And she was like, you have to go for 2 weeks, and if after 2 weeks you still hate it, then you can stop. Best advice ever. If I had to give anybody any advice in the world for anything, I would say just try it for 2 weeks, because the first 2 weeks is the hardest. The first 2 weeks of being new and making new connections and new relationships and not being afraid to look stupid and be bad at something. And like that was what I was so afraid of as a kid, was like failure and being bad. And I don't want to be the one on the team who's like new and doesn't know. But that's all so stupid. And if you can get past that, then you start to reap the rewards. And so I think that's great advice that my mom gave, and I try to remember it to this day, and I'm always trying to try new things to this still to honor my mom's advice. The 2 week rule. If you can get past the first 2 weeks, chances are you're probably gonna like it more than you thought. Anyway, kicked and screams. Mom said I had to go for 2 weeks. I went to 2 weeks. Obviously, after 2 weeks, I love swimming. I don't want to. That must be awful to have kids.
You were a squid after 2 weeks.
And so then I was just hooked, and I just wanted to keep getting better. I just wanted to keep getting blue ribbons. I just wanted to keep seeing improvement. I just kept wanting to beat my sister. All these things I didn't think were possible in myself suddenly were happening. And like, it was a small pond, and like, you know, you level up and you're like, man, I'm not so good anymore. But that's kind of the process that you grow addicted to in athletics.
Is that where your competitive
I don't think I'm competitive.
started?
I am not competitive against other people typically. I think I'm pretty competitive against myself. I was always drawn to individual sports. Like swimming is not, I mean, like a relay, I guess, kind of, but it's not the same as a team sport as like volleyball, which I also did when I was young and choked like a mother because I just couldn't handle the pressure of like the whole team is counting on me and I'm also counting on the whole team. And like coming as a kid who was like kind of fearful and didn't have all that self-confidence, like it was too much pressure for the team to be dependent on me. I needed my performance to be my responsibility, and that was it. And I was always drawn to individual sports for that reason. So like swimming, I think, is the most individual sport you can do. You're in the lane with your friends, but you can't even hear anything but the water. Like it's literally you and your thoughts, and that's it.
And the wall.
And the wall, and nothing to look at but a line of tile on the ground, like, and splashes, and nothing to hear but water whooshing, like, for an hour and a half in the pool. And it's like, man, I'm hooked on that. Like, what do your thoughts sound like for an hour and a half?
Wow.
Good stuff. Anyway,
yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you polled, 100 swimmers at 11 years old, that's not what they're going to say.
Well, I don't know if I would have said that at 11.
Well, that's true. But something about that.
But actually, you know what, to be honest, I was always aware of like the positive impact that discipline would have on my life. I was aware of that from a very young age. Probably, I think I had great examples in my parents. That sounds
like your dad.
Yes, I idolized my dad, and like that's him to a T, and like I just wanted to be like him.
I mean, we're talking about a military type discipline in that man. He's very focused, very regimented.
Yeah, and also a free spirit in his own way. So he's just like the most interesting combo of qualities.
Yeah, it's like I've never met anybody like him, and I really learned about how I educate people because of him. Probably the single most intelligent patient I've ever had to deal with. And if you can educate somebody with that superior intellect, I felt like I walked away from that experience a better clinician just by helping him with his Achilles.
Just for the audience out there, my dad, the quote unquote most intelligent patient he'd ever had, loved Ron. Just saying, really loved him.
Well, there was a good solid 2 weeks where all of that was on the fence.
Same. I've been through that 2 weeks with my dad.
Yeah, I would imagine it wasn't 2 weeks.
No.
It was probably more.
Yeah, 20 years. Maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he was an
kudos
interesting
to
character.
you for getting through that.
I remember, and it was like, there's always a pro and a con, right? And it's like, I would never say it was anything other than a huge blessing to have somebody like
Totally
that as my dad. But also, I will say, and probably self-imposed, I don't feel like my parents ever made me feel like you have to be this or we're not going to love you. But I looked at my parents and thought like, oh my God, there's like, I better be something awesome if I'm, you know what I mean? If I got to,
right.
I'm this guy's kid.
Right. He's not selling for anything less than your best.
When we were in school, the rule was if we got less than, and he wasn't really mean about it, he didn't have to be, but if we got less than 95% on a test, it wasn't like we were in trouble. But what he said was that showed less than mastery. We obviously did not master the topic, and our goal should be to have mastered the topic.
Man, I could give that guy a hug. So impressed.
He's not a big hugger.
I mean, if I could get a hug, I would love a hug.
Okay.
Now, competitive swimming, as you age up, you start to realize maybe this is not your future.
I mean, I got into it. I was super into it in high school, and I obviously loved it. I swam on a team. I was so lucky to swim with some of the most incredible swimmers that we had here in town at the time.
Because you eventually made it to BCH, right?
BCH, I swam. By the time I got to high school and I was still swimming, I was into it to the point that I was swimming club for the rest of the season, and I was swimming my high school season with the school, and I just breathed swimming.
Right.
But even at that, like pretty much, especially by the time I got towards the end of high school, it was pretty clear, like, you know, I'm not going to the Olympics. I'm not
Maybe
gonna.
this isn't my future.
Right. And shout out to Helen Yee. Hey girl, at Helen Yee Sports. She's like a sportscaster now. She's amazing. And Michelle Yee. They were like the two dopest swimmers in the land when I was a swimmer, and I was on a team with them. And they were amazing. I got to swim side by side some of the best. They were really great examples. They were so humble and sweet. Like,
don't hold back on any shout outs. You feel free to shout out
shouting
anybody.
out everybody. Shout out Sticky Paws Studio. Thank you so much for having us.
And you can talk too, man. Don't feel like you have to be quiet back there. No worries. Travis is sometimes part of the show.
Travis, if you don't start talking, I'm going to feel personally offended.
Travis walked away, but
Travis, I'm here.
Oh, hi.
Yeah.
But
I don't have a camera set up for me.
Travis didn't share that part with you.
He did not.
Oh,
so that's new to me.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
So, yeah, we have a bone to pick with Travis.
Yeah, I
So
think
wait,
so.
sorry, what's your
when
name
DJ
again?
Travis comes back, he's gonna get a talking to.
I'm Chase.
Chase.
A
I will not
pleasure to meet
forget that
you.
again.
Yeah.
Hi, Chase.
Yeah, I met Chase today too. Apparently, Chase is learning.
Yeah.
Me too.
I actually met you a few weeks ago.
You did?
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
You came in the clinic real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. See?
Yeah.
I was paying attention.
Get him, Chase.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
Okay.
dying to know, how does competitive swimmer become
Okay, well, you're going to love this.
entrenched in yoga?
You're going to love this. The first thing you have to do.
All the Kool-Aid.
The first thing you have to do, if you want to go from decent competitive swimmer to enlightened yogi, the first thing you have to do is totally F up your whole life. You have to throw away everything that you've worked for. You have to go to school and lose the Millennium Scholarship, which is like the easiest scholarship ever to get and maintain. You have to go to school and mess up so bad you lose that.
UNLV has a relatively...
If you go to school in state in Nevada, you get a pretty cushy
Yeah.
scholarship for a mediocre-ish GPA. And it's been 10 years since I was in school, so I don't know. I don't know what the criteria is now.
Mediocre-ish?
In my mind, getting out of high school when I was like top of my class, less than 90% is mastery, blah, blah, blah.
Mastery.
It was a pretty mediocre GPA required to maintain this thing, okay? And I lost it in one semester. I went to UNR and I partied my freaking face off. And I abandoned every goal.
Like so many Southern Nevadan kids do.
Like so many. I abandoned every goal that I'd ever had in a sense. Like I was going in pre-med. I wanted to be a coroner when I first went to college.
That's not creepy.
So I was pre-med, like kind of a pre-med program when I was in this program called WISE, Women in Science and Engineering, for
love it. I love it.
women who were doing the male-dominated field thing, like extra incentive. So I lived in like this wing with all these nerdy chicks, and they were awesome, and like,
The nerdy
but
chick
anyway,
wing.
but I didn't really do
Was
the
there a sign that was
nerdy
up?
chicks only
Nerdy?
beyond this point.
That's outstanding.
But obviously, I wasn't really. I mean, maybe I was nerdy, but I was also an animal, and I was so regimented and held to such a standard. up until that point. And I'm not blaming I was wild. I gave my parents a lot of pushback even when I was young.
Right.
But I just kind of busted out and I tanked my GPA and gave up on all athletics, period, went from 0 to nothing, was eating a pint of Ben & Jerry's half-baked. Shout out to Ben & Jerry's. Half-baked ice cream. I was eating a pint of that every day. I was just spiraling.
Wow.
I was just wild.
And
So then came home from UNR, was kind of going to school at CSN, UNLV, which was I don't know, in my head kind of shameful. It was just kind of a dark time in my life where
Right.
I didn't know who I was. Chaos surrounded me. My parents were really, really mad at me, as you can imagine.
I can imagine, yeah. I think everybody's 20s are awful.
Yeah, I had
No?
I mean, well,
My boy Travis reappeared.
Hi,
That's
Travis.
BOI, just in case you were wondering.
Okay.
You shake your head no.
Yeah, I'm 23 and I'm living life.
Oh. Wow.
Well, and to that point, I wouldn't take anything back. I have
You got 7 more years, buddy.
zero regrets. He's ahead of the curve. Boys mature slow, though. It's true.
And then enter yoga.
Yeah, so I was kind of going to school at UNLV at this point, and I didn't really have a whole lot of direction. I had changed. I don't even know if at that time I had a major, but it certainly wasn't biology or pre-med anymore. The truth is, I don't think I was actually that into that stuff. I think I was trying to force myself into a realm that I thought was going to guarantee me respect and prestige and success, even though it wasn't necessarily my truest self or truest desire. Although I don't think it was inauthentic. I really did want to be a coroner in my head.
Right.
But I think that maybe my motivation for it was a little bit misguided.
Is a coroner a medical doctor?
You have to get an MD to be a coroner,
Yeah,
and
that's
then you
what I
also only deal with dead bodies after that.
Right, but there is
You
a
have to get the
certain
MD. It's not
common training to most doctors, and then you divert to
right, exactly.
dead
You
bodies.
got to get
Yeah.
Or maybe just stay at dead bodies. Don't medical students work with dead bodies a lot in training?
Physical therapy did too.
Dead bodies?
Yeah, I did. I took gross anatomy.
You did?
I did cadaver dissection.
Okay. How was that?
It was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, see? It wouldn't have been
And for the
bad.
record, I want my body
Donated?
donated to physical therapy students in particular.
cool.
So you can dog ear that if you like.
I will dog ear that. Don't touch him. Bring him to the PT students
PT
immediately.
students first.
Okay.
Cut them up.
All right. Well, anyway, so I was kind of just lost, and I was kind of just floating, I guess. I was just going through the motions of life with no real direction. And my friend Lindsay, shout out to Lindsay. We don't talk anymore. She hates me, but she was doing yoga. She was doing this Bikram yoga thing, and she was like, "You got to come to a class. It's hard." And me and my ego, my whole life, I'm battling my ego. I was like, I am going to be the next best yogi. I'm going to walk into this class and I'm going to be magically perfect at it. And I'm going to be so in shape, please.
#humbled.
#humbled big time. It was the longest hour and a half of my whole entire life. And I thought it was only an hour, but the class was an hour and a half. It was hot yoga, Bikram yoga,
Yeah, so
26 postures.
The definition of Bikram is a temperature and yoga.
Yes.
That's correct?
Yes, and a
Okay, just
humidity
making sure.
component, I believe. I mean, I don't want to say the Bikram community might come for me. I don't really remember. But yes,
Yeah.
it's got to be hot. It's got to be humid. And you do the same 26 postures every single time.
Right.
And I think even the dialogue and the language of how you describe what these postures are supposed to look and feel like is mandated across the board. All Bikram teachers are supposed to say almost the same script.
If you advertise the word Bikram, it implies these 26 postures and a temperature and a
If you hear the word
humidity.
Bikram, you know exactly what you're getting when you
Got
walk
it.
into the room.
Got it.
In theory.
Got it.
And so I really think I was just looking for something or anything. And I kind of knew in my heart and head that if I were to find a physical outlet, a lot of stuff in my life would feel less cloudy. And it was something that I did miss from swimming, but I didn't want to go back to swimming. I was burnt out on swimming. It was
Right. What would you do?
old.
Like
Yeah, right.
adult?
Water weights,
No, what is it called?
masters.
Masters, yeah.
But it was, to me, it was been there, done that. And I'm obviously not getting as good as I, I'm not going to break any records here. It's looking like I'm not going to be a swimming champion. So might as well try something else.
Right.
Lindsay was doing yoga. I went to class and it was kind of like I was instantly hooked. I remember when I first came home, I was like living with like some friends at the time. And they were like, I remember they were kind of like, Madeline, like, don't act like you're about to do a bunch of yoga now. Like, go ahead, buy the clothes, buy the yoga mat. But we all know you're going to drop out in a month, like blah, blah, blah. Just like, I mean, I bring this up just because I think it is when you do make an effort to improve your life, you might have to shed the circle around you. That's a really tough lesson for a lot of people to learn. But anyway, this is a recurring theme in my story, but whatever. So they were like, yeah, you're not going to do whatever. I knew it was. Right. And I did. And I was just like totally hooked. And I did yoga every day, all day. I ate it up. I drank it up. I licked it up.
It was straight sweaty Kool-Aid.
I would sometimes do 2 classes back to back. I would be in the room for 3 hours straight.
Holy shit.
Just the same 20, just because I was wondering, is this a G-rated podcast?
It could be whatever. I try not to say that.
I'm going to keep it as clean as possible.
But I was taken aback by that.
Yeah,
I was in the moment there.
I'm super intense. And when I am an intense person. So when I found it and I liked it, I went for it. 200
teacher hours.
Yeah. So in yoga, you get certified by like you have a 200 hour, 300 hour, 500 hour. And it's just like the amount of hours you've spent learning how to be a teacher of yoga. So 200 hours is the typical introductory course. And I chose to do that. I think it was about 2009, 10 maybe, 10. And I did like an immersive program in Sedona where I moved out there for a month.
Right.
And I lived in this.
It's super intense, right?
I mean, all yoga teacher trainings are different.
Right.
And there's none in town that I know of that do anything like, it was very Eastern. It was very like, it was a lot less about the yoga asanas, the physical poses, and a lot more about like the history and like the Bhagavad Gita and like where all of these practices came from. It was a lot of chanting. It was a lot of meditating. It was a lot of just different types of yoga practices, cleanses. We brushed our teeth with salt water and sesame oil, and that was it. We did like neti pot cleanses in the dirt garden at 4 a.m. in the dark. We did this one cleanser. We had to chug like a liter or however much water that is, like a 2 liter, like a soda bottle of hot salt water. We had to chug it and then throw it up right away in the parking lot at like 4 a.m. Dude, this training was, I'm not even going to shout out this training.
We went the opposite direction on that training.
It was just wild. And it was non-refundable, so I stayed. But I did learn a lot. I really did.
But those are still life-changing, altering,
lessons. And
for sure.
My biggest...
You got 100 hours in that month?
200 hours in that month. And actually, I did the math. It was more than that. I actually brought it up to the teacher. I was like, I've done some calculations, and we've been here for about 300 hours, and yet
like
I'm only
Mr.
getting
DeAngelo.
I'm only getting certified for 200 of these hours. We had to do chores. I had to like scrub the lady's salt rock lamp with a toothbrush. It was called karma yoga, and we had to chant in our head like while we did it. And like I understand why these practices are important. Like,
sounds Karate Kiddish.
It was a little Karate Kiddish. Well, and they kept saying it was going to make sense at the end, and it ended. And I was like, none of this makes any sense.
You didn't get the epic sand the floor, paint the fence?
Not really, but maybe much later.
I was totally going to go for that experience.
It was, I would like with any of my experiences, I would never take it back. It was not what I expected, but it was awesome, and I learned a lot of. It wasn't the stuff that I expected to learn, but I learned nonetheless.
So when I hear you educating a strength class, very similar to how a yoga instructor would instruct a yoga class, how much of that was learned in that particular? I'm
sure lots of it. I think I got a lot of my cueing, like physical cueing, from the way I learned, like yoga teachers talking to me, and in my yoga teacher experience, the way I would explain things to people. And I think teaching yoga was hard. You're really active for the whole hour that you're teaching. If you're teaching a class, I mean, it's 60 minutes of talking, just straight talking, giving people things to think about the whole time.
As a student of coaching, I'm enamored with yoga instruction in the way that one person who's never done yoga ever and a person who's lived a yoga life gets the same instruction in a different way, and they both perceive that a different way. And the instruction can touch both of them in a really awesome way. So when you teach a strength class, you have the ability to do that in strength. And I find myself listening to your cues and listening to the way that you conduct the class And I can hear the yoga in there with the CrossFit jargon. And I just think that combination is really, really
Thank
strong.
you. Yeah, yoga made me very aware of how to cue physical stuff. It's harder than you would think. It's really hard to cue people on how to move their bodies.
There's a ton of people who think they can coach because they were successful as an athlete. Well, that's what they call an N of 1 in
Yes.
research. An N of 1,000, an N of 10,000 means you have mastery over the ability to touch different types of learners, different
Right.
types of perception, different body types, different physical ailments. We all bring a perception of yoga to that same class, and the instructor's got to break all through that.
Yeah,
And
for
that's
sure.
a very, very challenging thing to do.
Yeah, I agree. Teaching yoga was challenging, and it has definitely made me a better strength coach. I think. Would you see any parallels?
Which is the best.
It is the best.
It is the best. And it just blows my mind. Any parallels with what?
What you were saying about like how an experienced yogi and a brand new yogi can hear the same instruction and then apply it in their own way within their breadth of knowledge. Do you think that applies in strength training as well?
100%. 100%. You know, if today's your first day of CrossFit and then you take a weekend, CrossFit level 1 coach, you could pretty much do that.
Yeah.
Like, you don't really need to be anybody to take a CrossFit level 1
No.
certification course.
No.
It doesn't mean you can coach anything.
Very true.
And, there's a lot of CrossFit boxes out there with very inexperienced, very lackluster coaching. And, the next person without a certification who's been in that realm for, when it started and has coached 100 different people, they know how to bend those words and use a little extra sentence, or sometimes taking away words is even better.
That's a great point.
And knowing when to move in and out of that cueing is expert level.
Totally.
And that's a really hard thing to do with coaching.
Totally.
Not everybody can do that.
And I like what you said too about like the experience, because I think for somebody who's been teaching fitness for 10 years, legitimately, I don't have that many certifications. But I have tons of experience. I mean, I do it every day with people and with myself.
Right.
And that is way more valuable than like my 10 years of experience. I would take that over any one of my certifications. I mean, they were cool experiences.
Right.
And I didn't learn nothing.
Right.
But
they
10,000
didn't
hours,
shape you
baby,
as
that's what it
much.
takes.
100%. And a lot of athletes going to coaches don't know that. And then a lot of people gravitating towards coaching don't know that.
Yeah, coaching is that's a whole nother podcast too, because it's like good coaching is so rare and so hard to find, and it can be like you can disguise so many other wonderful qualities as good coaching, but it's not good coaching. And so ultimately, if your goal is health, like you've gained some stuff, but without a coach who really knows what they're talking about and knows how to get you to know what they're talking about,
Right.
that's rare. And that's why you see so many CrossFit gyms with like inexperienced coaches and people getting injured left and right. And it's because that's one of the flaws, I think, in the CrossFit system.
100%. And I think we're maybe getting a little ahead of ourselves because I still have more questions about yoga.
Okay.
But one of the things that I found really interesting is you made some comments about your body image and who you were as a woman and yoga. And can you talk a little bit about that? I think
like
sometimes you don't like talking about the woman part of you, but I find that part to be just as important as anything else.
I think it's maybe I don't want to say the most important part. It's super important. I hesitate to talk about it because I want to make sure I say everything exactly the way I mean it.
Right.
And I want women to hear the right thing, what I think is the right thing anyway. Because it does add, it's an element for sure. But let's circle back to that because I think where that really comes in, because I don't know how aware of it I was when I was doing yoga. I mean, yoga changed my life. Like, yoga was a full transformation inside and out. And even though yoga isn't a perfect practice physically, meaning that I obviously landed here at strength, and I'm not doing yoga all the time. So obviously I think that strength offers me something better physically, but the gifts that I got from yoga mentally and like spiritually, and there's like some internal work that you do, like even like breath, like not just emotional internal work, but like something as simple as breath that has paid off in every single thing I've done after yoga, which makes yoga so worthwhile. And I would never, like, it really did save my life. Like, I don't know what I would have, I'm confident, I hope I would have found something else if it wasn't yoga at that time that I found yoga.
Right.
But thank God I did. And thank God it was yoga, and it hit so close to home. And it really taught me these like lessons on how to be like kind of gentle with myself and how to like not take so much for granted. And I'm like, in a Bikram class, I remember thinking like I'm legitimately grateful for like a sip of cold water or a cold air against my face when you've been in the hot room. And it's like, those are really worthwhile practices as an athlete and as a person. So
100%.
Wouldn't take it back. But
as a person.
So from yoga, then I had a good friend who, shout out to JK, who he was working at a CrossFit gym. That was like kind of his thing. He was like super in shape. He did aerial silk performances. He's just amazing, crazy athlete. He was doing CrossFit. He was CrossFit coaching. He was like, I want you to come and do yoga for my CrossFit athletes at the gym. Would you be interested? Come and teach. I was like, 100%, yes. Went and did that.
I didn't know that.
That's how I got into CrossFit.
Got it.
And me and my ego, I was like, well, let me see what these CrossFitters are like really doing. You know, well, first of all, let me see what they're doing, because as a yoga teacher, I want to know what they're doing so I know what to give them in their yoga class that would supplement what they're doing, number one. Number two, how do I stack up against these CrossFit? You know what I'm saying? I'm Miss Yoga.
Because in yoga, you're basically brainwashed to believe you're a superior athlete. Is that fair?
Brainwashed is a tough word. And to be honest, if we want to throw it around, I would say CrossFitters are more brainwashed than yogis.
Really?
Everybody's brainwashed.
Everybody's brainwashed, but my perception is that the yoga the yoga person is really, really impressed with what yoga people do.
Okay, I love it. As somebody who's done a million, like I've done so many different, I've been in lots of different circles and pies, and I've sampled lots of different sports things and immersed myself in lots of communities.
Drink
at this
many
point.
a Kool-Aid.
Everybody thinks that what they're doing is the best thing, is the right thing, is the thing.
Got it.
I think that's a universal across the board. Every community that I've entered thinks that they've cracked the code. They've got the secret. Like, this is it. And everybody's right and everybody's wrong. Right. That's what's so awesome about life.
Right. Right.
Anyway, so started at this CrossFit gym. I took my first CrossFit class and I was like absolutely like mauled and humiliated and embarrassed by the heart rate that I achieved so early in this workout. Like, I was just on the floor. Like, there was no pride left in my body. 3 minutes into this workout, I was like, I'm not who I thought I was.
Right. Who am I right now?
Chaos consumed me once again as the walls of what I once thought I knew collapsed around me, and my reality shifted into this dark, spiraling cave where I was like, okay, so, but
it took 3 minutes.
At the same time, I will also like to note for anybody out there listening, I was smoking almost a pack of cigarettes a day.
As a yogi? Wow.
I would smoke on my way to yoga, and I would get out of the yoga studio and I would smoke again. The first thing after all that breath work.
Wow.
So I'm not perfect. I definitely had to claw my way up and down and up and down. So yeah, I was when I was partying in college when I was like 17, that's when I started smoking, and I didn't quit until I was 25.
Holy cow. I didn't know that about you.
A lot, like a chain smoker.
Wow.
Drank like crazy, partied. Yeah. And that was at the...
I mean, to help the listeners understand why that's profound, I think, is because the Icebox community has Madeline like on this athletic pedestal. And
well, I mean, but that's I'm it's kind of a comforting maybe, or a relief to know that I'm like, It's not like I was always some crazy fit athlete who never
Right.
did anything wrong. I strayed from the
Right.
path a bunch. The best thing that I've ever done was never, ever stop. I mean,
Right.
even though I was smoking or whatever, like I was doing other things, and maybe, I went to Reno and messed up a little and took a year off or whatever, but I always came back to something.
Right.
And that's really, you zoom out, that's what's more important. Doesn't.
At what point do you transition from instructing yoga to instructing CrossFit?
So I was taking CrossFit classes, and I will credit CrossFit with getting me to quit smoking. It was something that yoga couldn't do for me, but CrossFit with the intensity, and now I have to run 400
The
meters.
metabolic conditioning.
Yes, and now it was a choice for me. Where yoga, you're doing breath work and whatever, but it wasn't impacting my performance that I could feel. But in CrossFit, where you're going to spike everything, and now you're going to run, that's a lot different.
Right.
And so I will credit CrossFit with getting me to quit smoking. It became a choice between, do I want to smoke a cigarette or do I want to run that 400 meters tomorrow without stopping? And ultimately, I guess running 400 meters without stopping was more important, thank God.
Right.
But
Right.
it did take something that extreme for me to quit. I didn't want to quit. I didn't want to quit.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I know.
I never would have guessed that.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. Big smoker. 5 years clean though. Hey, shout out to me. Anyway, so I started doing CrossFit. I quit smoking, and now I'm like all hyped on this like new thing that I found. I'd been doing yoga for like 5 years, and maybe that's my limit with things. And I had just drinking this CrossFit Kool-Aid, and I was like, this is it. This is a new thing for me to attack. This is something new for me. I have lots of
Right.
room to improve. It's
And
brand
I think that's
new.
when you entered into maximum
And
velocity.
that's when I found
universe.
you, because coming from yoga, thinking I'm a super athlete, into a CrossFit gym with poor instruction and bad coaching, and I didn't really know exactly what I was doing with a barbell. I'd never touched one before, and while I had great body awareness and I had lots
Right.
of my own foundation of yoga, it's not always the same, and weight bearing is totally different, and I didn't have somebody in my ear telling me exactly what to think about and focus on and how to do it mechanically perfectly, which I think is the problem with CrossFit, is like that ego kind of gets involved.
Right.
And it becomes about the number you can lift or about the time on the clock that you get done,
Right.
and not about how did you execute those movements or that weight that you just moved. Because if it wasn't perfect, why are you doing this?
Right.
Because that goal is arbitrary and it's fleeting and it's not going to last your whole life, but a perfect squat will.
Every single CrossFit athlete, which I've had many, I always remind them every session that the entire thing is about the movement.
Right. It's easy to forget in CrossFit.
We turn it into competition. We turn it into records on the wall. We turn it into, CrossFit games and all that.
Well,
but it's always about the movement.
And I agree. And it's like, it's another tough, like kind of a polarizing, where it's like, I don't know, anything in life has its positive and negative, and it's good and bad, and it's whatever. But CrossFit, I mean, it's like the healthy competition is kind of good, and maybe it pulls some people out of their shell, and like you compete with others and yourself, and that's awesome. And it's like CrossFit's cool because your performance in the workout is your own responsibility, which is like that kind of individual sport aspect that I'm always drawn to. But you're doing it in a class, and you're doing it with a community, and you feel very engaged and involved, and you're a part of something, and people love you and support you, and they're going to push you. And like that aspect of CrossFit is really great for some people. And like,
Right.
and if,
Well, I can say that Icebox has really, really over and above grabbed onto that concept, and I think that's sort of the lifeblood of Icebox.
I mean, I think that community aspect is really good, and I think that's kind of that's like a thread that's not just necessarily CrossFit. I think if you look in any of these sport
CrossFit
communities,
wants that, but it's not
CrossFit does it
theirs.
great. CrossFit really does a
Right.
great job with it.
Right.
But CrossFit also can't ignore their giant flaws, which is what you talked about, like
Right.
the mechanics of the movement, and that does get ignored. And the sport's fairly new, and hopefully that changes. But if you look at Matt Fraser and Tia Toomey, who are like the two top CrossFit athletes, they're like untouchable at this point. I'll go on record here as saying that the reason that the two of them are at the top and untouchable is because they're mechanically perfect almost 100% of the time that they move. And they're the only athletes on the field that I could really say that about. It's really staggering to see at the top level these elite athletes who are in positions that are making me cringe.
Right. Totally.
It's making me cringe.
I say every day that bodies are not what make those types of athletes successful. It's their brain and their ability to replicate movement and their ability to synthesize that movement. And you're right. You can see sort of biomechanical flaws around the field.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what those biomechanical flaws are what brought me to you. So I guess in a sense, thank God CrossFit is flawed. I'm very happy to have met you. But it was a coach there who said I was in excruciating pain in my back. I couldn't bend down. It was radiating down to my knees. I felt like a limp noodle. I don't even know how to describe it. I was defeated. I was mentally not cool because this was the first time in my life one of the first times, I should say. I had a couple others before, but any athlete who's been injured knows how, like, that feeling of like, I want to do this thing and I can't, my body's not letting me. And it's so frustrating. And I would do anything to fix it. Like, say the word, I will do it. Like, I just want to get back to doing the thing that gives me like this purpose.
Right.
Hurt my back. I'm going to see my mom's chiropractor at the time, and she's all giving me you need to take 6 weeks off. And then when you come back, you can do, this was my favorite part, you can just do low impact stuff like swimming or yoga. I already did those.
Wait,
I'm
an expert at
I want to
those
do
two?
something else now, please. Like, so.
That's why I'm here.
And so I was like, just so over it. And I was just so frustrated of hearing that answer. Like, 6 weeks off, like, I hate it.
It is such a quintessential
Isn't that
thing for the
awesome?
medical community
I know,
to say.
I know. And so Ellen, shout out to
Don't
Ellen.
get me started.
I know, that's a whole other podcast too.
For real.
Ellen was like, go see my guy Ron. He's not going to tell you to rest. And that was all I needed to hear. I didn't care. I would take my money, just send me to Ron, get me to Ron immediately.
Right.
And that's how we met. And I remember some of our earliest conversations were about, like, I remember talking about inversions.
Right.
Yoga positions where you're like upside down, and you were all telling me that they were not so great for you. And I
Right.
was like,
Excuse me.
I'm going to do an inversion right here just to show, but just me and my, like, but whatever. But of course, like, I learned a lot from you. And every time I had something to fix, I learned something new about movement and how to control my body and like what the mechanics were that were going wrong. And you were hugely effective in being this like educational figure where I was like, oh, this is all starting to click.
The concept of stretching your back and strengthening your back to make the symptoms resolve, I could see your little wheels going. Like, you had all this yoga education and experience, and yoga teaches you a certain thing about what to do when you feel that.
Yeah.
And then to have a completely different opinion and then work, I could see you just going like, wow, like the light bulb was
awesome.
was bright.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
And from then it was just the wizard. It was like I always joke that Ron is my primary physician. If anything happens to me, I'm calling Ron. Like, you've never let me down.
Just for the public, that's not accurate.
But it's true. I mean, every and so I think that was like really turning a corner for me in the sense that I learned that it was like this, like opening a door to limitless potential. Going long, talk and talk.
Okay.
Opening the door to limitless potential, where it was like, if I can, like, so now this is my new practice. This is my new thing to like sink my teeth into. And if I can understand and master within 95% or above, this.
Shout out to Mr. DeAngelo.
Shout out to Scary Larry. He's not listening. He is off the grid, people. He is not online. But it was like this aha moment. I mean, in a sense, like, it was like the physical version of what yoga did for me mentally, where
Right.
it was just like this, I have the key. This is it, the fountain of youth. Like, I understand. and then I experienced what I expect you maybe experience, where it was like, this is making so much sense. And like, you can really affect change, positive change in your body and in your life this way.
Right.
Why is everybody not like clawing at the door to hear about this?
It's
Like,
the difference between feeling good and being better.
explain.
Well, like, I think traditional medicine, especially physical therapy, is designed to make you feel better. Like, you walk out feeling
Okay.
better, but you're not actually better.
That's fair.
You're not changed.
That's fair.
I want to make changes. I want the person to have a body that's different.
Yeah.
I want them to perform better. That's different than feeling good.
Yeah. And there's,
And I think that CrossFit coaches who know how to do that are the ones that have the biggest impact.
and I think that there's two going back to what you just said on like the care of like a traditional physical therapist leaving and making you feel good, you put like kind of a Band-Aid on the issue without fixing the issue. I think there's like two principles there, and maybe this is overarching Western medicine in general. But I think like the number one thing that I notice about like options that are like Western medicine popular, i.e. cortisone shots or stretching or
Braces.
Braces
brace.
or
Yeah.
The cupping or like gua sha or what is it called with like, and it's some kind of like those intense things, like
Right.
those are things that are done to you. You as the patient take a passive role. I am a victim of this problem. You need to come and impact change upon me, do the work, fix it. I'm taking a passive role. I'm hurt. You fix me.
Right.
The real solution is teaching people how to fix themselves. People don't want to do the work.
Hallelujah. Amen, sister. Amen.
But that's where the magic in life happens.
Write down the time she said that, because when I do the clip, I want that clip.
Magic in life happens, and this is not, and this is where I come from. Like we've had some talks lately about how I'm like a philosophical in my approach to fitness or whatever, and it comes back from even from that young age, 11 years old, being aware that if I were to take discipline into my life and embrace it, I would be better for it. Magic in your life across the board happens when you start taking responsibility for you and like for the way you feel and for the way you act and for the way you look and for the way you perform and for the way you feel and all of those things.
Right.
And if you're taking a passive role, fix me, do this to me, you're not giving me that like hungry, bloodthirsty, like let me like tackle life approach that I really want to see and that I really want to inspire people to embrace.
Right.
In a way that's not, it's not as scary as people think. I mean, it's the 2-week rule. It's just starting is the hardest part.
Right.
If you can get past
Right.
that, then the rest is kind of easy.
Man,
well, I don't know about easy.
Maybe you need your own podcast with all that. What's Icebox?
So Icebox, and I will say this too. I really cringe a little bit when people call us CrossFit. We're definitely 100% not CrossFit. NOT, not CrossFit. Although we did start that way. Originally, I was working on getting an affiliate created called CrossFit for Life.
Right.
And we actually got that all done and squared away. And then this was around the same time during quarantine when the CEO of CrossFit made those like very out of touch tweets and like whatever. And so the brand just became totally useless completely to me, which was a huge blessing because I really am happier now that we're just strength. We're Icebox Strength.
Right.
And what we offer, I mean, we're group classes. So we do, like you mentioned, like that community aspect and the part of it that feels like you're a part of a team and you're a part of something maybe bigger than yourself and you're among like-minded people working towards a common goal who all want the best for themselves and each other.
Right.
We definitely provide that environment, which is huge, especially for people who maybe don't
100%.
have that anywhere else in their life. I really love offering that blanket, but we're super like foundations based, like form and foundations are quality over quantity, just all of those things. And so we just really try to teach people the basics of how to move your body in space. I call myself in my bio that I gave you today that you did not tell me you were going to read on this thing.
Surprise.
Professor of movement. I feel like that's kind of the title. That's because I don't know what else to call it. I mean, I am a strength coach. We do like some CrossFit kind of conditioning from time to time.
Right,
like,
but it's not theirs.
but
high intensity interval training, metabolic
Right.
conditioning,
That's not
Olympic
CrossFit.
lifting is not CrossFit.
no, those existed before and independently.
Totally.
Yeah.
And the way that CrossFit programs it is sometimes not the best. And having mastery over programming exercise and movement and including some concepts that people most commonly see in CrossFit is okay.
Totally.
And so that, I've seen a change in programming over time. I've seen
We've evolved.
Yeah,
Definitely.
The evolution is palpable.
Definitely.
And there's some hard and fast things that happen to push that into fruition, but which I don't think are as important as like where you're at. But one What's a typical Icebox strength session
So
like?
I would like more often than not, an Icebox strength session, if you come and show up at class, is we're going to go over the workout and we're going to ask everybody how they feel. And we're going to say, you know, are you sore? Is anything bothering you? Any like little twinges, like anything kind of acting up? Because sometimes you hear those little like aches and pains and you don't even think about them until all of a sudden you can't move your arm. Like, so we try to catch those things with our athletes, like in the beginning, and try to address them. We try to focus, like if somebody says, you know, my shoulder kind of hurts or whatever, I'll try to really get like a good shoulder stability warm up involved for everybody. I assume if one person has it, why not work on it for everybody? Those
Right.
weaknesses are there to be strengthened. So we try to put an emphasis on like prehab or preventing injuries in the very beginning, getting everybody primed really well. And then go over the movements. So we'll really break it down, kind of like how you were saying with the yoga cues, where it's like, okay, here's exactly what you're thinking about in these positions. We'll pull a demo out. Here's exactly what it should look like. My favorite thing to do is ask all the other athletes in there, especially my repeats who are there all the time. Like if somebody who's demoing is doing something wrong, I don't tell them what it is. I ask the class,
Right.
what do you guys see?
Right.
What can he do to fix that?
Teaching happens.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really think it's like educational. I try to teach people how to move their body safely and effectively
Right.
under body weight and then progressive load.
As soon as you told me that the affiliate, if there was going to be affiliate, was CrossFit for Life, I was like, oh my God, that is perfect. To me, that means across the lifespan, young and old,
Yep.
and introducing concepts of fitness that we think is important for everyone.
Right.
And I feel like the further I get down this road in physical therapy, the more that's my mission,
Totally.
is to bring 80-year-olds to a barbell, 8-year-olds to a barbell, and how do these barbells change people's lives? Do you think it's possible for a person to be too strong?
Ooh. Physically, like too much lifting? Is that what you mean?
So I ask all my guests that.
I mean, that sounds like a trap because obviously the answer is like no. Like,
Well,
I mean, you can get to a point like where, you know, you're super bulky bodybuilder dude and you can't lift your arms above your head. This is no longer functional.
But one thing that we had keep arriving at is we feel like we're closer to the truth now than we have ever been.
Yes.
And the truth in our mind is strength. And the number one impairment that I see in the clinic is lack of strength.
Yeah.
And the average person, if I pull a random person at the mall and test their strength, it's going to be completely subpar, like 20% of what it should be, maybe
Right.
10% of what it should be.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, is it possible that you could be too strong?
I think it's,
I mean, you mentioned the range of motion
I
limitations.
mean, I would say,
but-
yeah, it's possible if you're imbalanced. I try to shy away from imbalance. So like if you are really, 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 really strong,
in
but-
one particular direction.
right, but you're not super mobile, you can't, you know, reach your arm to like grab the other
Right.
seat on the car and look behind you,
Right.
or your mind's all over the place and like maybe you look great and you're super shredded, but mentally you're a
So
mess.
maybe
I mean,
if the strength was one-dimensional.
yeah, I think that's too strong. I mean, that just feels like a trick question.
Well,
I will never, ever, ever stop working on my strength. I will be 80 years old and lifting.
awesome. I want more 80-year-olds in my clinic,
Okay, get back to me in 50 years.
or in Icebox. I don't
I
care where
agree.
they. I don't care
agree.
where they go.
I agree.
You know, I just need them. And incidentally, the 80-year-olds right now are the fittest in the history of the world.
That's awesome.
Yeah. The 90-year-olds that are around are the fittest and the strongest in the history of the world.
That's awesome.
And it's the advancement in strength and conditioning and the understanding of the importance of strength that's saving those populations, you know, in the ones who are functional. I'm hoping that every 10 years, that generation is stronger than the one before. And the more people age up and, the more people live to be that age, I hope it's because they realize that they have to be strong.
Yeah, I hope so too. I agree.
So one thing we had talked about was why or why not would you recommend yoga and or CrossFit, and how does Icebox sort of cover those deficits?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's kind of just a like a review almost, because I just reiterating things I kind of already said, where I feel like yoga, what I got from yoga in terms of mentally, emotionally, spiritually, in general, that was life changing. It changed. Like I was saying, like I was going to school and like maybe trying to force myself into this like path of life, because for the reasons that I said. I mean, I thought it was going to bring me money, respect, prestige. I wanted to be, ironically, I really wanted to be like a domineering woman in like a male dominated field, which looking back is a strange goal. And that is in the women talk that we could maybe have later or whatever. But for whatever reason, you know, being young and naive or whatever, that was what was really driving me. And then arriving at yoga later and opening up this space where I was able to look at myself from like a bird's eye view and take into account like more of like, I don't know, what am I? Like, what do I want? Like, what am I really, like, what's actually important? Just like all of those things that I got from yoga are really important. And I will say that the people who are like, I don't need yoga. I couldn't just sit there like in yoga. Like I have to be doing something. Yoga's boring. Those are the people who need yoga. They just outed themselves right to you.
Right.
Because the best thing I learned about yoga was how to sit in discomfort and be comfortable.
Right.
And I actually got a comment from one of my athletes. I was like taking one of the classes with the Icebox people. And we were doing something hard. And I was just like, we got a curveball. It was like harder than we thought, whatever. I was just unbothered. And I remember one of my athletes was like, I am uncomfortable with how comfortable Madeline is right now. That's the best compliment you could get in a state of chaos or adversity or things just got tough.
Right.
And if you can maintain your calmness,
that's
you
high
are
praise.
bulletproof. Yeah,
Right.
It's high praise for sure.
For sure.
And I had to work for that too, because I was a super anxious little kid. I used to get panic attacks and stuff. Not even as an adult, I would get panic attacks. So I had to do a lot of work on it, and yoga really helped me with that.
Right, that quiet mind.
Totally. Quiet mind, breath work, like sitting in discomfort, doing nothing but doing plenty, and being aware of your body and like the things that are happening, like breathing and your heart beating that you're not thinking about, but they're happening. And so tune into that and be aware and be mindful and be conscious. And yoga is so good for all of that stuff.
Right.
And it's definitely made me a better coach and mentor for people having that background.
Right.
So that's what I would direct people to yoga who are looking for maybe something like that. And then CrossFit, I don't know, I would direct them straight to Icebox. Because CrossFit's great. CrossFit's cool. I mean, CrossFit got me into it, and it's big and it's getting popular, and it's maybe motivating people who wouldn't have before. I don't really know, but I do think that the role that ego plays in CrossFit right now makes it equally as harmful as it is beneficial, and that's tough. It's tough to sell people.
I have 2 more questions.
Okay, I have 2 more answers. I'll make them quick.
First one, do you think strength happens in yoga?
No. Not in a final kind of way. You're definitely not done strength training in yoga. No.
So the importance of that statement is the definition of strength, first and foremost, is there needs to be an external load. If there is no external load, there's no strength happening. While yoga athletes can be fit, they can produce some amazing postures. I think they are working on stability and endurance, but not strength.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Fair.
when I have yoga athletes as patients, across the board, extremely weak.
Very weak, yeah. I was very weak on the barbell after yoga. Very weak. I was a noodle. I could
Right.
bend any way you wanted me to.
Noodle is a good approach. And if you don't understand that concept, there's a podcast on stretching.
And I will also say, if you are a noodle and then you go up to pick a barbell and you can put your body in any position and nobody tells you what the right one is,
Right.
you're going to pick the wrong one.
Right. There's a reason why you're 4 times more likely to be injured in a CrossFit box that has more than a 7-to-1 ratio of athletes to coaches. So coaching is the key.
Yeah.
Last question, and I asked this of all the people on the podcast. What music are you listening to?
Ooh. Okay, I love this. Okay, you want to know what I'm listening to right now? And I'm not
Yes.
even lying. This is what I'm listening to while I work out. It was in the clinic the other day. Mm-hmm. I was listening to this, and I was not only hyped, but I was like so moved by this. I was like crying because it was so good. Everybody's gonna laugh. So many more shout outs are about to come. The current song that I'm like blaring on my own, this is only when I work out alone because nobody else wants to listen to it, but I'm listening to classical music. I'm listening to Adagio for Strings is my favorite song right now.
Really? Can you
Yeah.
spell that?
Adagio, Adagio, A-D. A-G-I-O, I think.
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah, Adagio.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. For and just like F-O-R strings, S-T-R-I-N-G-S. So on Spotify, I'm listening to Adagio for Strings by Samuel Barber, Leonard Bernstein, and the New York Philharmonic. But I was turned on to this song
I did not see that coming.
by this incredible quartet that I saw called Symphilin. I just saw them at this event that I got tickets for online, and they were like a classical quartet, and they played that song in theirs, and it was so good that I've been hooked and I've been listening to it. So look up Symphilin on Instagram, people. Shout out Symphilin.
So
They were amazing.
It's not like a techno remix
No.
with
In
classic.
fact, I'm so glad you asked. I think it was Tiesto or somebody
Yeah.
like that had a remix, and it was
Right.
an actual horrendous travesty that I was offended to by listening to. Yeah, it was bad. It was really bad. It was really bad. Tiesto, that was not the one.
Are you
Yeah,
going to shout it out?
Adagio. No, not the one. I'm shouting out
You're not going to
Symphilin.
shout out Tiesto?
Nah, he gets enough. And it wasn't good. It wasn't good.
Yeah.
Adagio
that's
for
atrocious.
strings. Mm-hmm. That's
Now,
the
I'm
song.
actually, for the first time in the history of my podcast, embarrassed to say what I'm listening to with such a strong version of what you're listening to.
Well, let's hear it. The Black Keys.
No.
Oh, I actually know what you've been listening to because I hear it in the clinic.
Oh, really? I haven't been playing it in the clinic. I
Well-
can't play it in the clinic.
Eminem.
Oh, no. Eminem.
You've been playing Eminem in the clinic.
Oh, I did put on Eminem radio the other day. It lasted about 30 minutes until an 8-year-old patient walked in the door, and I was like, "Know your
That's
audience,
enough
people.
Eminem.
Know your audience."
Okay, so let's hear it.
I'm actually really exploring this country thing.
I love that for you.
I know it's
Is this
such a new
inspired
thing.
inspired by Garth?
No, actually, when Garth was super popular in the 90s, that was on popular radio, which is what my mom listened to. So like every single song at the Garth concert reminded me of my mom.
Aw, I love
So
that.
I sent her like a bunch of videos, like there's only one reason on the planet I know this song. It's because I was in the back like, can't believe we're listening to Garth Brooks right now.
Love it.
But so I had kind of a negative opinion about country for so long, and now, it's just something that I want to explore and
That's
not be
good.
so close-minded. But Brothers Osborne
Oh,
is,
they're great.
is a little more rock, I would say, than country. And I gravitate to those guys, the Chris Stapletons and that. But yeah, so Brothers Osborne, they have a
Okay.
new album out. It's really good.
Love it. I'll check it out. I will say that open-mindedness and willingness to accept those things that maybe I once passed judgment on, like country music, or accepting that any other physical practice has something to offer besides the one thing I'm doing, that this is the one,
Right.
has been my greatest asset and has kept me open to so many things, and I've learned so much because of it. So that wraps it up nicely.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah,
I'm proud
thanks.
of you for listening to country music.
I would love to say thank you to Madeline DeAngelo, Coach Mad Dog from Icebox Strength, based at Maximum Velocity Physical Therapy. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're going to be a regular on the show almost as often as Ron. And I hope to tackle some really cool topics. I can't wait
Definitely.
for
Yes.
She actually mentioned she wants to interview me, and I don't know about that, but
Yes, you
I'm
do.
open to that.
Yes, you do. You want me to.
Maybe we'll even switch chairs.
Switch shirts.
You want to wear one of my shirts? Do I have to wear a nice box jacket?
Fuck yeah. Oh, shit.
Okay.
Edit that. Cut.
You're fine. You're fine.
Okay. Yeah,
So,
definitely.
Hyperspeed Radio episode 12. Shout out to your mom. Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.